after Johnny Depp brought back prior expert witnesses to debunk Amber's witnesses. Depp's ex-wife is copying the same strategy and invited her own experts back to the stand to testify against the rebuttal made by Johnny's team.
And why are you here today?
To offer rebuttal testimony to Shannon Curry's testimony of yesterday.
Okay.
And while this is getting dragged longer than expected, Amber's witness still tried to disprove Dr. Curry's opinions about her diagnosis of Amber. However, by the looks of it, Amber's psychologist was able to do everything except that. So, how did Depp's team demolish Amber's witness, and how will this testimony affect the case? Let's find out. Dr. Hughes started her testimony with a strong note. She and Elaine went over every contradiction made by Dr. Curry in the previous trial and made their own contradiction to the allegation against them and the credibility of Amber's PTSD diagnosis.
So what's interesting about Ms. Heard's approach to different tests is that it seems to be influenced by what we call the face validity of questions on the test. So if a test looks like it's measuring PTSD, you see exaggeration on her validity scale.
The explanations were pretty long, but here's what Dr. Hughes has to say about Dr. Curry's allegation regarding the results Amber obtained through the test they used with her.
Do you agree with her criticisms of your administration and interpretation of that?
No, so the PCL-5 is a checklist of symptoms of PTSD. It is, as she said, it is a face valid instrument. It seems it's very clear about how you can endorse this. But what the person has to do is say, how disturbed am I by these symptoms? And when you have face valid measures with these other measures that have the built-in sort of validity scales, you're sort of controlling for that response bias error. You're controlling for that individual to sort of over-exaggerate. But then what you do with that test, because this is, we're not just administering them like robots, is you go and you do a clinical assessment. And that's what I did. I took what she wrote, what she endorsed on that test in January of 2021, and I did a clinical assessment of those symptoms to see if they meet criteria for PTSD. That is something we do clinically, and I do in my office all the time.
Second in the rebuttal is about Dr. Curry's allegation that Amber's results clearly show that there is manipulating that happened and that she and Dr. Hughes joined hands to come up with results that they can use against Johnny in the case.
Accurate and reliable.
Now, Dr. Curry also suggested that Amber Heard was tested very, very high, 98th percentile, I think, on malingering and feigning. Could you speak to that?
On the contrary, Dr. Hughes testified that the test she used is spot on and that there was no alteration that happened.
There was no evidence of malingering or exaggeration or feigning on that test. What Dr. Curry was talking about was this tendency to put your best foot forward to minimize faults on this PAI. That scale was right at the cusp. And then there are two other measures that we look at that to say, is this enough for an elevation for me to consider that as a serious response distortion, of which Dr. Curry was saying, and it was not.
Moving forward, Elaine continued to nitpick about what Dr. Curry criticized about Dr. Hudge's diagnosis. Specifically, Elaine emphasized how Dr. Curry wasn't very impressed with how Amber's doctor used the CAPS-5. Speaking more about it, Dr. Hughes revealed how Amber didn't exaggerate her symptoms and, in fact, scored very moderately in the test.
Do you agree with her criticisms?
I do not.
Will you please explain to the jury?
So the CAPS-5, as you all have heard multiple times, is a structured clinical interview in determining PTSD according to DSM-5 criteria. On this measure, Amber Heard scored in a moderate range. She did not over-exaggerate on this test. She could have said no, mild, moderate, severe, and extreme. All of hers were either 2s or 1s or 0s, not above that. So she's scoring in the moderate range, which still has functional impairments. I mean, we don't want someone to be having moderate PTSD, but that's not an exaggerated profile or exaggerated response style of someone who's answering.
Dr. Hughes sealed the deal by giving emphasis and following the manual, and that's what she did when she did this test with Amber, which is why she is sure her results and diagnosis is accurate.
Did you agree with her testimony yesterday?
No, again.
Please describe why. Explain why.
What Dr. Curry went back to, which is this 98th percentile, which I told you in the manual. All you have to do is read the manual. It says specifically that we do not use the percentile ranks for this test. That indicates to me that, Dr. Curry does not know the psychometric properties of this test, and then she then is therefore not qualified to interpret it.
However, Depp's lawyer demolished these rebuttals very simply. During the cross, Johnny's team whipped up the manual Dr. Hughes talked about and used this against her testimony. Beginning the grilling session, Depp's lawyer read out one of the instructions of the checklist Dr. Hughes used to diagnose Amber with PTSD. Dr. Hughes clearly hesitated but was cornered and admitted that she indeed used the test without specifically following the instructions.
It says, using the calendar, please mark the approximate dates during the past year when you were abused by your partner or ex-partner. You didn't use any calendar, did you?
I did not use a calendar because she was already out of the
Depp's team continued to pound on this point and repeatedly asked Amber's expert whether she conducted the test while following each and every instruction provided with no exception whatsoever. To rally more points for their argument, Depp's lawyer proclaimed how Dr. Hughes has actual knowledge that Johnny's alleged abusive tendencies based from Amber's testimonies goes back way before and lasted more than just 1 year.
I didn't ask you about anything other than, don't the instructions limit this test to the previous year?
You can give this test not only on the previous
No,
year.
asking you about the instructions.
But I'm telling you how the test is administered in clinical practice and in forensic practice.
And opposing counsel can come up and ask questions about it. I'm asking you about the instructions. And the instructions say, look over the past year.
Yeah, on this, yes, it says that.
And you had
This confirmation from Dr. Hughes only strengthened Dr. Curry's claims that Amber and her psychiatrist knowingly manipulated the results in their favor. But wait, there's more, because Johnny's lawyer successfully made Dr. Hughes admits that she filled up some parts of the checklist she handed to Amber and even called it a collaborative effort.
blank form, but this is the dangerous assessment test that you also gave to Ms. Hurd, correct?
I didn't give it to her. I filled it out based on the data that was provided to me.
Oh, so you asked her the questions and then you filled it in.
It was somewhat collaborative.
Okay.
In the end, it seems like Amber's expert fell short to disprove Dr. Curry's allegation against her and even indirectly helped Johnny's team to prove that they are in fact correct. How about you? Do you think Amber's team manipulated her diagnosis? And will this revelation affect the outcome of the case? Let us know in the comments below.